Every lesson is a lyric in the universal song. Oh, the lessons of the journey, I weave them in my song.
Hello, and welcome to Lessons of the Journey, where we discuss the stuff we actually needed to learn in school with Coach Jen and Coach Nicole.
We are so happy that you're joining us today. And today we are talking about the 4 agreements. So Coach Jen, I'm going to turn over the definition or the explanation or the however you want to do it to you on this because you're the expert. What are the 4 agreements, Coach Jen?
Oh my gosh. Okay. Oh, I'm so glad you asked. You guys, this is one of my favorite topics. So you're going to see me get all like giddy and passionate about it because it is actually the platform for my coaching practice. It is a life-changing guide is really what it is. So the book itself, it is a book. It's called The 4 Agreements. The subtitle is A Practical Guide to Personal Freedom. And once I put this into practice in my life and I've helped clients really truly gain access to it, I really do wonder why we didn't learn this stuff in school. It is literally life-changing. And I don't say life-changing often. Like I'm not one of those, oh my gosh, that sunset was life-changing. Like that. No, this shit right here, this literally has the power to shift your life. And that's why I get so fun about it. The subtitle is A Practical Guide to Personal Freedom. Okay. Doesn't that sound amazing? Personal freedom. Isn't that what we're all searching for? Out of my head into personal freedom. The book, it's based on ancient Toltec wisdom. And it's basically a code, powerful one at that. It can, when put in practice, literally rapidly transform your life to help you experience freedom, happiness, and love. And if you thought you already had it, wait until we get into it. So simple, not easy. There's only 4 of them, 4 agreements. It sounds like, oh yeah. And when I introduce these agreements to folks, it's almost like they think they're already doing it. But agreement number 1 is be impeccable with your words. And that goes further than say what you mean what you say. So impeccable, what does that mean to you, Nicole?
You know, I always come back to whenever somebody's talking about what you say and then how you show up as a result of what you say. So I always go back to under promise and over deliver. And that's what that means to me. If you say you're going to do something, you do it, and even some more, the way you show up. So, but I would say it probably has to do with how you speak as well. I'm always trying to bring in kindness. Nicole is the bossy bitch with kindness. I mean, that's kind of the way I try and live my life. I always get the bossy bitch part. I don't always get the kindness part. But I think that also plays into the being impeccable with your word.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that. Thank you. Yes, all of that. And so let me take a step back, actually. Let's refine agreement. What is an agreement? And what does this mean when we're talking about how we're living our lives or implementing these into our lives? So this is my version of what an agreement is. And this is how I try to make these things practical to folks. Because maybe if you read the book, you don't get the idea of what an agreement is. So this is what I'm defining as an agreement. I'm saying that at every point in time in your entire existence, since your birth, you took and continue to take part in creating thoughts and ideas that you believe to be true. And this can happen actively, and it can happen passively, and it can be conscious or subconscious. It can even sometimes be unconscious. And the participation that I'm talking about in creating this, that's what I'm calling the agreements. It's your participation in the creation of the things that you're living by. And so you're currently living with all of these agreements that have happened since you've been born, whether you actively made them or not. And this is our reality. Our reality is formed one agreement at a time. Can we work off of that as an agreement, Nicole?
Oh, yeah, 100%. I totally understand. How many times have we mentioned thoughts and beliefs and your beliefs? So this is the agreements you make, true or not, or partially or not.
Yeah. So if we looked up agreement in the dictionary, it would say just that, the act of agreeing, which have we talked about how I hate when they use the word in the definition? Come on. God.
It's the worst.
What's an agreement? The act of agreeing. Shut up.
Yeah. You're like, okay.
Yeah. Definition number 2 actually says the state of being in accord that means that everything's moving about because there is this accordance in I'm just going with it. And here's what's really interesting though. In law, when we define agreement, it's an expression of an assent by two or more parties to the same object. So before, when you heard me say conscious, unconscious, maybe actively or passively, if you went along with it, if you were acting as such, that was an agreement. You just decided to move forward with it. It's an exchange of promises. And so if you've been living your life that way, you've decided that that's the way to go. Now, what happens is at some point in adulthood, we go, I feel stuck. Something's going on and I don't know how to get out of it. And usually when we go through that coaching process, you found an agreement that no longer serves you. And what we know now, because of science, is that you can't actually just get rid of an agreement. You have to replace it with something else. You can't just be like, oh, I don't agree with that anymore. You literally have to do the work of creating a new agreement to replace that old agreement. And that is the work, right? Because I'm 43 years old. I have 43 years of agreements that may or may not serve me. And you don't get rid of those overnight. It doesn't happen. You don't go, oh, I'm fixed. That doesn't happen. You have to actively work on that new agreement. That's where the work comes in. Can you give me an example, Nicole, of something that comes to mind when I'm talking about what I'm talking about here?
Well, first of all, I think you brought up a good point that I think should be stressed is passive agreement is still agreement.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we are more aware in our conscious versus our subconscious of the things that we are saying yes to, but we are also saying yes to the things that we don't say no to. There's that passive, and I think that's really important. I mean, I have so many agreements. And by the way, this is just bringing up this whole psychology thing going on in my head about how to deal with trauma. And a lot of it is rewriting your story. Mm-hmm. And it's really interesting because this is touching on that. And it's exactly what you said. You can't say, I don't like that trauma event, so I'm just going to delete it. We can't delete it. They physically cannot tell you where the memory in your brain is located. And they think it might be in multiple places, but can you adjust it? Can you replace it with something else? So I love this topic of conversation. This is awesome. I can't think of anything personally for me. There's just so many agreements I have. You know, when we did money, like how many agreements do you have around money? How many agreements do you have around relationships that may or may not be? How many agreements do you have around friendships? Oh, a friend should show up and do X, Y, Z. Well, what if that friend shows up and just does ABC and you're like, where the fuck is X, Y, Z? That's what a friend is. And they're like, I thought a friend was ABC. And
yes.
Oh,
that's so great. That's right in line. We're definitely going to have that conversation because that plays off of all of the agreements. They build on each other. Let me just shoot some examples so everybody can kind of catch on. Right? When we're young, our parents tell us, look both ways before you cross the street. Great agreement. Keep that agreement in adulthood, please. Let's look both ways. We teach our kids, we're going to pass that agreement on. Hey, don't touch the hot stove. You might touch the hot stove, but you're going to learn that agreement real quick. So, okay, good. Going to pass that one on. That's one I'm going to keep. Maybe there's an agreement about I'm an awful singer because when I was 5 years old, my dad was in the other room and I was practicing singing and he said, hey, keep it down. I don't like that noise. And I decided right then and there that I was awful at this thing. And dad didn't say you're awful at this thing. He was doing something. I was doing something. They didn't mesh. And I just created an agreement right then and there that I need to never sing again. Or I showed a picture to my mom that I drew at school and it didn't go up on the refrigerator and I found it in the trash. And I decided that I'm an awful artist or that my mom doesn't like me being creative. Or do you see where I'm going with this? Mom never said that. And I can tell you, I have kids. There's so much shit that comes home from school of the scribbles. I can't keep it all. And yet mom didn't ever say, don't bring those home. I love them. We talk about them. But ultimately, what are we going to do with all of this junk? And so maybe you created that agreement and didn't even know that that didn't exist on the other side. You see the juxtaposition of, and there's everything in between. But sometimes we carry these things with us into adulthood and we are judging our parents or our friends, like what you said. Oh, they think this. Do they? How do we know? We make that up. So back to agreement number one. We can't know this as children, which is why I really think this needs to be taught in school. But be impeccable with your word. Ultimately, speak with integrity. Say only what you mean. Now, this gets tough because we've talked before about I have dictionary.com on my phone because do I know what I mean? Have you ever gotten into a conversation with somebody and they go, well, you said this, and you go, well, I didn't mean that. How often has that caused turmoil in our lives because we were just saying things, or we weren't really sure how to be clear, or we didn't really understand the definition of the words that we were using, or maybe the person we were speaking to has a different idea about that, what that word means. And do you see how easy it is to get lost even in agreement number one?
Okay, so Coach Jen, here's my question, because when you're saying that, like the sciencey side of my brain, I'm not a scientist, but I definitely love sciencey stuff.
Yeah.
And sciencey stuff, part of my brain is going, I can't define every damn word
No.
while I'm talking to somebody, and I can't make myself crazy. What can I do? I actually had an interesting scenario just recently. My son and I were arguing, and in the house, I live in a casita attached to my child, his wife, and their two children. So we're all close quarters, and my son and I are definitely the most combative relationship that is on this property. And we've actually gone to therapy together, and we've learned how to communicate. And we were getting into this argument the other night, and I went, I'm going to stay totally calm in this. And he was a little heated, and then he ended up leaving. And I texted him the next day, son, I love you. If you're not feeling it when we're communicating, just say, Mom, I'm overwhelmed. Just give me some space and I'll be good and we can talk later. By the way, he didn't respond to that text for almost 24 hours. And I did not get worked up about it. I let it fall. I said my piece. I let him know how I felt. So then today, 24 hours later, he comes in the house and he gives me a big hug and he's like, I love you. You got my text then? We've talked about words before. Right? We should totally do an episode on words because words have meanings. You can go to dictionary.com, but then also things mean different things as you're raised. Some words have negative connotation for you that don't for me, or vice versa. So give me the lowdown on how we do this, be impeccable with our word without making ourselves crazy.
It's such a dance, isn't it? I have so much to say. I think we could spend an hour on each agreement itself. And maybe we do that down the line. One of my favorite quotes of all time is, and I'm awful at regurgitating quotes, so I'm going to give you the gist of it. And ultimately, it's the irony of the quote, which says, the difficulty regarding communication is the illusion that it actually happened. We can attempt to be as clear as possible, to speak with integrity, to only say what I mean. And it still is just my version of what's coming out of my head. And I do not get to be in charge of what the other person hears or what the other person does with it. And how somebody receives you is not your responsibility. I mean, kind of. I like what you said about be kind. We're talking about be impeccable with your words, speak with integrity. All of those things, if you're presenting yourself in those ways and you're doing the gosh darn best you can, how somebody receives that is not yours. And that's the difficulty around human relationships. We hope so badly that the people that are the closest to us just get it. Connection is a basic human need. And we so deeply want our people to get us. And they're their own people. And we don't get to control what they hear or how that goes. And so I love what you said about your son, is that's the beautiful art of detachment. I love you. We're going to fix this, whatever this is. And my brother is the same way as your son. He's got to take the information. He's got to sit with it. He's not going to be one to respond. And we know that from human behavior. There are some people that are like, I feel gross. I need to fix this right now. And they're really intense. And they come at you. And usually they're with people that are like, whoa, I need a minute. I need to sit with this. And those two people together will cause a fight. Because one person's feeling attacked, another person's feeling abandoned. Usually these people are married to each other.
Yeah.
And so this just scratches the surface of how we begin interacting in this world. It just scratches the surface because so much more goes into it, like what you said. I can't define everything. No, you can't. And if you're sitting with somebody you love, you can slow down. You can care about how they're receiving you. And if you feel or see that they're not receiving it, then you slow down some more. I'm hearing us talk and it sounds like we're not understanding the basics here. I used to get Paul, my kid's dad, my fiance, He's from Mississippi and he grew up so differently from me, and he has an accent, and I'm from Southern California. And not only do I have difficulty understanding him sometimes, but words he uses that he just made up definitions to. So I would have to say, I think that we're not on the same page here. I think what is happening is that we need to define what it is that we're talking about, which is where that joke came from. Let me pull out my dictionary.com. What do you mean when you say this? And then I'll say, the definition of this word means this. Can we agree to work off of this? And very often, well, that's not what I meant. Okay, great. We're getting somewhere. And does this mean that conversations last forever? Yes. And does it matter to you? Maybe. Depends on who you're talking to. And no, we cannot spend all of our time doing that. But if it's a relationship that you care about, then I say take the time to be okay with letting it be what it is in the effort to become clear with each other. If it matters to you, you'll make the time, you'll take the effort. That's what I think.
I absolutely agree with you. I also think that you had said you hope that the people that you surround yourself with get you. I think a lot of times we think people get us more than they do. And that's part of building relationships, especially in the husband, wife, husband, whatever it is. How can I understand you better? How can I clarify for you better? I will say to my husband, when you said X to me, it meant this to me. And he's like, but I didn't say that. And I'm like, yeah, but that's how it translates, because we're having to translate. And it's real interesting what you said about that person who wants to get in and get it done. My son used to always be like, you pile on. And I'm like, I don't pile on. What he meant was he felt overwhelmed and he needed space to respond. And I'm not a space person. Let's figure this shit out right now. That's the personality I am. Let's get it going so we can be good moving forward. That's just not who he is. By the way, I said we're the ones with the most friction. We also love each other so deeply and dearly. He is fantastic and wonderful. And yet sometimes we want to just strangle each other.
Yeah. It's so interesting how we love so hard the people that are very opposite of us. It's that mirror. It's the showing you things in yourself. And I'm the same way. Some of my most dear friends, we are so different from each other. And I just love and respect it. And it's so interesting. And what you said, we're moving down in those agreements because we're going to talk about the getting each other or the way that we start interacting. But just to finish out being impeccable with your word, I want to very much stress, and this is why I wanted in school so bad, not only with other people, but be impeccable with your self-talk, with the way you speak to yourself, because I want you so deeply to understand that your own brain wants to hear your own voice tell you how it is. If I were giving this class, which is usually a 2-hour class when I'm presenting to groups or corporate or teams, it's very much a, let's talk about stories. Let's talk about concrete examples. Here's a fun example. You're walking down the street. You see somebody you haven't seen in a really long time. Hey, what's going on? How you doing? Blah, blah, blah. Somebody goes, hey, Jen, how are you? Guess what? Your answer, my answer, is not for them. My answer is for me. And I had an incredible mentor one time tell me, pick a word. I was as low as I could be. And I was like, I feel shitty. I feel awful. She goes, yeah, you do. Because you keep reinforcing it. And we know that you get the energy that you're looking for. Her advice to me, and I thought it was ridiculous at the time, pick a word you want to be. And when people ask you how you are, you say that word. I don't care if you feel that way or not, because your brain is listening to your voice. You know how people go, oh, how you doing? Oh, I'm good. How you doing? It's all empty. It's air. Nobody cares. Oh, we should get coffee. Yeah, we should. I hate that. I hate it. If I wanted to be hanging out with you, if we wanted to be getting lunch, if I wanted coffee, we would be doing it. I don't even ask people anymore. This is something you should know about me. If I say, how are you doing? I'm listening. I'm here in this moment and I'm aware and I care. Very often people go, hey, Jen, how you doing? I go, good. What? Right? Like, I'm not trying to get into that with other people. And so I think it's so important that you remember that your brain is listening to you speak. And so please, please avoid using your words, because your brain is listening, to speak against yourself or gossip even. And very much so using your own voice, because there's so much power in words, as you mentioned before. in the direction of truth and love to your best ability. And I think that if you approach things that way, you got a good start.
I love that. And I think it's wonderful. The one thing I would say is, Jen, you're allowed to say, I feel shitty, and you're allowed to feel shitty.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in our society, we do have a tendency to really try to push on people the positivity piece. You always have to feel good. That's bullshit. Some days you feel shitty, and it's okay to say, I feel shitty. And that's just where I'm at right now. And I won't be here tomorrow, but I'm there today, and that's okay.
I think that's the difference, though. Right now, I feel this. And those are words. Right now, I feel this. How are you? Shitty. There's a difference there. Do you hear the difference? Right now, I feel tired. I have a 3-year-old who comes into my bedroom every night between 2 and 3 a.m. And when I walk around this earth, I don't want to always feel tired. And so I'm not going to continue to regurgitate that I am tired. I am tired. Please, please, please know that you are what comes after the phrase I am. I am is the most powerful phrase in all of English as far as I'm concerned, because you are what comes after I am. I promise you that. So yes, feel tired. I'm not going to tell you you can't, because we are human and this is life. And sometimes I'm fucking tired. And sometimes I'm just in a mood. And I will acknowledge that. It's not the fake it till you make it thing. There is science to the energy that comes out of the words that you decide to use. Because remember, your brain is listening. When we're talking about being impeccable, I'm going to challenge everybody to, acknowledge that right now I'm tired. I had a rough night and I'm working on being whatever that is. There's power to that energy. There is power to those words. Don't fake it. Acknowledge, sit with it. I think it's really important, to your point, to sit with those feelings, to learn that all of our feelings are important and they're trying to tell us something. And remembering that there is power and energy behind the words that we're using, which is why agreement number 1 is be impeccable with your words.
I love that. I love the cultures that won't say the words, I am sad. They'll say, I have sadness upon me.
Yes.
That's how they say that. I had a friend way back when, and we're not in communication anymore, but he didn't ever say, how are you, or what's going on. He'd always say, tell me something awesome. And that's what he would say. Tell me something awesome.
I say, what's going on in your world? Because we all wake up and we feel like, oh, it's all right here. When I talk to somebody I haven't talked to in a while, that's what I say. It's rarely, how are you? It's what's going on in your world. It's going to give me a really good idea about how they're doing. If you wouldn't mind, can I give you some real life application for,
yes.
I know we just talked about it a little bit, reiterating, be aware of your self-talk, your brain, and all of universal energy that I believe in. They're always listening. You are what comes after I am. If you want to create affirmations, start with I am and whatever you want to be, and let your brain hear it over and over. It will do something for you. Listen to this statement and tell me what the difference is. Help me remember versus don't let me forget.
Here's my example for that, Coach Jen. When we used to coach Little League, they would always say, don't look at the base, don't look at the base. And I'm like, stop telling them what not to do. It's like, don't look at the ceiling. And you instantly want to go, well, what the hell's at the ceiling? So you would say, look at second base instead of don't look at the base. Because if you tell the brain don't, it can't process don't.
Exactly right. So the brain doesn't register negation. And I'll tell you a secret, neither does universal energy. So when you say don't look, you're looking. When you say don't think about an elephant, what are we thinking about? So if anybody here wants to pick up a challenge, these are little challenges that I issue to help start you thinking about how to be more impeccable with your words. I say to my kids, help me remember to grab that bag on the way out. Guess what? I've got 3 people remembering. And my brain heard remember, 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 instead of forget, forget, forget. Don't let me forget. Now 3 people are forgetting and my brain forgot. And it's little tricks like that. These are life hacks. If you're into it for a day, try help me remember and see how much further you get. And then of course, if you're really into making communication better with your loved ones, download dictionary.com, honestly, on your phone. It's really kind of funny and it really eases a lot of tensions and fights when you go, hold on, let me pull out the resource here and see if we're talking about the same thing. And it allows everybody to take a step back and kind of chuckle about it. And so those are just a few examples of how you can begin in your actual real life application of agreement number 1. Would you have More to add, Nicole?
That's great. Nicole's favorite saying is clarity is power. So I think understanding people, and also so many of us want to be understood, but do we seek to understand others? And that's Stephen Covey, seek first to understand. So especially in your relationships that are close to the most important things in your life. What I hear you saying is this, is that what you meant?
Yes.
I don't pull out the dictionary so much, but I have been more so since you and I have, been connected and talking about it so much. I do what does that word mean to you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're having the courage to ask that question and take a step back, dictionary.com, not necessary. Because if you have the wherewithal to say, oh, that's not what I thought. That's not where I was. I was thinking it was this. So now that I'm aware of what you're talking about, we can continue. And that clarity is power. I love it. That enables the conversation to go in a direction of truth and love, which is really what we're looking for from agreement number one. When I work with folks, we talk about how do we apply this in our personal lives with our family members, with our spouses, with our kids? How do we do this at work, the people that we interact with on a daily basis? So there's practical application of this particular agreement and all of the agreements in all aspects of your life. So when I say life changing, it really does move the needle in a direction that is pretty cool. Okay. Are we ready for agreement number 2?
I think we are.
Don't take anything personally. Oh, Jen, I don't take anything personally. And so what's really funny is we just talked about the word don't. And
right.
The irony of don't take anything personally.
That's
but
true.
To explain, so if I were to take out the negation, this is how humans communicate. If you were to look at this book, you would know what it meant by don't take anything personally. So we're going to go with don't take anything personally. And note, the footnote at the bottom here is the irony. And this being agreement number 2 after we
So just out of curiosity, how come it isn't take nothing personally?
Take nothing
personally.
I like that direction. You should note Don Miguel Ruiz. I have his email address. we're going to send it. Let's go with Nicole's. Take nothing personally. Exclamation mark. It is so funny when I work with people on this, they immediately go, I know that. I don't take anything personally. And I very confidently say, before you met with me today at 10 a.m., you took 87 things personally. Here's how I know. And what? No, I don't take things personally. Let's talk about your morning.
Well, you're taking that personally, so we'll add that to the list. That's so funny because when you said it, I was like, I take shit personally all the time. And I even know this agreement. I'm like, don't do it, Nicole. Okay, go for a walk so you can process through it and not take it personally.
This is tough. I never said these were easy. I said simple, not easy. This is tough. And this is why. It feels personal. You and I are talking. You and I are good. We're not good. We're elevations raised. We're down. Like everything feels personal, right? Because it's you and me. How could it not be personal? And here's how. Nothing others do is because of you. And that's tough, right? Because we have these egos that say otherwise. And almost especially with our kids, with our spouses, right? It's always going to end up back in our house. You'd like to think, and now this goes for good and bad. So very much I'll pull this one in. I'll be like, oh, they're just having a bad day. I feel for you. I'm just going to wish you well and move on. Right? Also goes for the flip side. Somebody goes, Jen, I got this text this morning. You are a queen. You're amazing. I'm so excited for you. And I want to go, yep. But I can't take that personally because that's those person's feelings about the topic at hand. And so as much as I want to take it and I can appreciate the compliment and the love that's being given, really those feelings. We know people that use a lot of words. We know people that use less words. And for some reason we go, oh, that person who used less words doesn't mean it as much. Oh, I'm going to take that personally because they didn't say all of these wonderful words like queen and rock star and badass and all those other things that make me feel better because I'm a words of affirmation person. That person only said, you killed it. You did a great job. Well, I liked queen better. So how come you don't, right? And so it's so important. And we can relate to this when we think about ourselves. You ever wake up just in a bad mood? You had a bad dream. You didn't get enough sleep. Who knows what happened? And you snap at your partner first thing. And they're like, they could take that personally. It had nothing to do with them. So when we think about this, it's really easy to be like, again, I'm always going to ask you to come back inside. Nothing others do is because of you. I don't know if my clients love or hate this out of me, but what they often get is get over yourself. Get over yourself. That person is having that person's day. You have nothing to do with it. And that's tough for us when we have kids in the house, when we have a partner, all of these things for these very interpersonal relationships. We want to take it personally and don't. I mean, don't. Because really what others say and do is a projection of their own reality. And you know that about yourself. We've all had this conversation. It has nothing to do with you. We've said that to somebody that we love. I feel this way. It doesn't have anything to do with you. It's what's happening inside of me. Why can't we accept that from other people, even if they're not saying it out loud? And that's the awareness part that we're talking about. Your example with your son. I'm not going to take this personally because this is his process. This is how he's going to go. All I can do is be impeccable with my words, how they build on each other. And we'll talk another time. I'm not going to take his feelings personally because they're his feelings and he's allowed to have them. And I think that that's really important to remember. And then this is the life-changing part. When you're immune to the opinion and the actions of others, you won't be the victim of needless suffering. And I think that's so powerful because how often do we create our own hell inside of us?
Yeah.
It's a very powerful thing. Tough. I'm not saying it's not. This is where our awareness and our practice come in. We create victimhood inside of things that don't exist. And it's tough to crawl out of sometimes, but here's the key, right? When we can actively practice these agreements, they bring us out of needless suffering. And needless says that we created it. That's what's the brilliant part about this.
It's amazing. And it's a really good point. And lately, I've noticed personally in my life that I'm much more aware that it's me or someone else being fired up about something. It's not actually the thing, something else going on. With myself, really have to stop myself and go, okay, what is the thing? Because I don't think it's this. Because it's usually the indicator is like, wait, going up over something stupid. So it's not the stupid thing. What is it? Is there something you're not processing that's happening? Something that is going on in life? Are you upset about something else? What's happening? Because you got to get to the root of what's actually doing it. But now I see that so much clearer, and it helps me to understand that other people, they've got their own baggage they're bringing to the table. And it's like, that's not my baggage. That's your baggage.
Yeah. And that's so important to remember. Another word for baggage is agreements. Agreements can be, of course, we know good and bad is subjective, but these are all of the agreements that they're bringing to the table in this interaction with you. And you're right. It's not about the thing. It's about their judgment of the agreements that brought them to this thing that's having difficulty meeting of the minds in that moment. And is this tough in the moment when we have our own stuff going on? We're heated, our stomach hurts. Yes. And it doesn't make these any less true and any less powerful just because we're having our human difficulty acknowledging it in the moment. And that's why this is so powerful. So I say again, get over yourself. Let's expand. If we care about the person and really what the result of this interaction needs to be, let's take another perspective. And to your point, be mindful and curious of the thoughts and feelings that come up for you in a not so great interaction. You just said this. It's such a great point. I'm feeling funny in my tummy. What is this trying to tell me right now? Things like that. It's interesting. Curiosity.
Coach Jen, I can usually tell you when my amygdala is being hijacked. I mean, I can literally say I'm in and my husband's like, well, you're getting hijacked right now. And I'm like, okay, that means I need to calm down. No, your prefrontal goes offline. You have don't reasoning. You'll call people things that later you're like, why would I say something like that to someone? Trauma messes with that, by the way. If you have trauma, you're quicker to hijack. But if you become aware of it, then you're kind of counteract that. So internal introspection is such a thing for that. Yeah. And this is the hardest agreement by far.
Some folks say the next agreement is
thanks,
the tough
Jen.
one. Simple, not easy. Practice. I'm working with this with my 3 and my 5-year-old. You don't get good at anything without practice. So not only do we definitely need to be practicing these in the moment, we need to be practicing these every day, throughout the day, all of the time, to build that muscle that in those crazy interactions goes, okay, I've been here before. I know how to walk myself back from this. I know how to be aware, mindful in this situation. I know that this is all about me. I know I'm going to attempt to bring forth my most impeccable words with integrity. I know that I'm going to do all of this in the moment. Paul, my kid's dad, tells me the first time I got a touchdown, he was a football player. First time I got a touchdown, it was like everything you've ever worked for in your entire life. And you and then he acted in such a way, one of those stupid dances. And his coach pulled him aside and said, hey, when you get in this end zone, because it's going to happen over and over again, act like you've been there before.
Act like you've been there before.
Like, oh, that is so great. So when you get in these interactions, especially when it's heavy, when it's heated, when it's excitement or passion, act like you've been there before and conduct yourself in a way that's integrous with who you want to be. So in regard to the not taking things personally, take that step back and go, are we working off the same information? Are we working off the same definition? Because how often has that happened? You failed to communicate that piece of the pie to me, and I am not working off of the same information. So I'm taking something personally that doesn't need to be taken personally because I don't have all of the information. And I'd like everybody to remember that taking offense to anything is your choice. You get to decide how you want to feel about anything. And now I'm not saying that things are not offensive. This is our personal thing, and you're allowed to be offended. I just want you to be aware that it is a choice to be offended at these things. And you can work that through yourself and your awareness and your mindfulness. I'm offended because, and then if the interaction matters, then you can help that person understand this is why I felt this way about that thing because of all of these other agreements that I've made in my life. What do you think?
Yeah. I think it's so interesting because when you say taking it personally is your choice, that sort of touches on also like a political thing, right? As like everybody's so offended. And can we just back off a little bit and just kind of not do that with each other? I feel like that's such a good lesson for all of the things, the impressions that we have about things, whether it's people or scenarios or thoughts. And I think for our people, for our tribe, it is important to understand them and help them understand us. And patterns. I think what you sort of touched on there is patterns. Like I've been noticing the patterns in my life and I'm like, wait, does that pattern really serve? It's based on an agreement. Here's the pattern I have. Wait, that pattern doesn't serve me. That jumping to conclusions doesn't serve me. So how can I do it differently? Well, my brain's still going there, but I'm not going to let myself respond. So I'm going to go for a walk, chill the hell out and figure this out in a different way. It's being aware of that patterning of why am I getting upset? Why does this bother me? Mm-hmm. Why am I choosing to let this bother me? I always told my kids, if you get upset by something someone else does, you're allowing them to have power over you. So choose who gets the power. Is it someone you care about? And I think the person who nails this the best in my world is my husband. Unless it's me or the kids, he don't care. Like he just he takes anything personally.
He's
like,
so great. You got a unicorn, Nicole.
I did. And I know it. I don't know why and I don't know how, but I did. I think it's amazing to watch that and witness somebody who can just, and I'm like, how does this not piss you off? And he's like, because it doesn't affect you and it doesn't affect my family. Yeah. So why should I care?
That's a strong moral compass in that I know who I am. I don't have anything to prove to anybody. There's 8 billion people in this world. Not everybody is going to get me. I'm not going to get everybody. And that's okay. Good God. Could you imagine having to maintain a friendship with 8 billion people?
Right. No,
and,
I would not.
And so,
I don't like that many people.
Yeah.
I don't mean 8 billion. I mean that many in general.
I know. I'm with you.
I don't know if I like the concept of moral because I feel like I have a lot of morality, but I also am not good at not taking things personally. So I don't know if the words moral is...
That was an incorrect. I was thinking like just the compass, the internal, and I don't mean ego because when people hear the word ego, we're not working off the same definition. Ego simply means the I. And some people have something to prove. And so if somebody's saying, you're dumb, I'm not dumb. I tell my kids this. Are you dumb? No. Okay, then
why do you care?
They were doing this. It was calling somebody a baby in my house. You're a baby. Mom, so-and-so called me a baby. Are you a baby? No. Then
why do you care?
And we had to go through that enough times. And then that would happen at school. So-and-so was being mean to me. They said this. Well, did you? No. Are you? No. Then walk away because it means nothing. If you can choose to not be there, if you know the truth.
Love that.
Go.
Yeah.
It's that simple.
This is all the stuff we wanted to learn in school. I agree with you. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Agreement number 3.
Lay it on me.
Tied for the toughest with don't take things personally. It's don't make assumptions. I get this. Jen, I don't make assumptions. I don't ever. You made 87 assumptions before we met this morning. I promise you that. How do I know this? You are human. You woke up. There's people in your house.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's how I know that. And so,
Yeah.
what does that mean? Because we even do this within a illusion of communication. I'm going to assume that I know what you're talking about, and I'm going to then respond based on my assumption of what I believe you're talking about, when in fact, maybe you're not talking about that at all. I just assumed it because I thought I knew what you meant by this word, and I thought I knew, and I just assumed that I could respond in such. We make assumptions so many times a day. And I coach to this and I practice it, and it has changed my life. And I'm still walking myself back from assumptions. This is a practice you will have until the day you die. And it will be worth it. And it will help you in so many things. And it is a practice, and it is daily. So what does that mean? How do I not do this? Well, I have to find the courage to ask questions and express what I really want. What did you mean by that? Like what you said earlier. How am I not supposed to take this personally? I know you love me. Brene Brown has this excellent statement. The story I'm telling myself is what you were talking about with anybody who you love saying something. I didn't say that. Yes, but the story that I tell myself is. And so these are the way assumptions are made. And that person goes, no, I would never. That's not at all. But had I not asked that question, or had I not informed them and been a little bit vulnerable with I know you didn't say this, but this is what I hear. And I recognize that it's something that I'm working on. And this is how I'm feeling right now after this. That takes so much courage. That vulnerability in that moment, it's everything. And I tell you, it's hard. It's hard.
I say to my husband, here's what I heard. I need to say the story I'm telling myself is, and I keep forgetting that one. And it was my father who he said this to me once, changing a pattern. You will do the pattern. And then like an hour later, you go, oh shit, I was supposed to change that. And that point, most people will go, well, that doesn't work for me. I can't change it. But what happens is that gap gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And suddenly it's 5 minutes after it happens. You go, oh, I was going to change that. And then eventually you start to catch it while it's happening. And eventually you start to catch it sooner and sooner and sooner. And eventually you'll catch it in the beginning. But that's where all the work and practice goes. And I'm like, this is brilliant, Dad. I love it. And then like 4 years later, I'm like, remember when you said this? And he goes, God, that's smart, but I don't remember.
Well, that's all I'm saying here. It really is all
Practice
I'm saying here is, remember I said I'm 43 years old. I have 43 years of agreements. Whether we want to call them positive, negative, good, bad, indifferent, whatever, there's 43 years of them. So if it took me 43 years to drill in an agreement, how long is it going to take me to replace that agreement? That's where the practice is. I'm really big on the but and. We live in a both and world. And so often we negate the thing we just said with the word but.
Yeah.
More often than not, the word and is the most appropriate. And I'm a language freak, and so I could get into this. But I like pink and yellow. I wouldn't say I like pink, but I like yellow. Does that mean I don't like pink anymore? Like, these are very elementary examples, and they apply to very non-elementary things in our lives, right? I can be grieving and find something funny and laugh in the same moment. It's such a nuanced life that we live here. And so my point in telling you that is, often in communication, even in this podcast that we're doing, you'll hear me say but and. Because I made this agreement that I was going to use it correctly years and years and years ago. And the way life goes is, but was in my life for 35 years. And so understanding that I'm not attempting to negate the thing I just said, I'll correct myself in the moment. People laugh and I go, I'm working on it. I'm actively working on the things that I am telling you are life-changing, and you will see me working on it, and I will correct it in the moment, because it's not for you, it's for me. I'm trying to be as clear as possible. And that does not embarrass me whatsoever. So everybody I coach with, and Coach Jen, and yes.
There's no but.
And so I have somebody go, Jen, are you telling me that but just doesn't exist? I go, no, certainly it exists. Sometimes in an email, it's this, but this overpowers that. So yes, sometimes. And don't use it. Practice and until you get it. Know the rules so you can break them well. That's what I'm saying.
I agree with you. I think, Coach Jen, that the but really comes around from the concept of I would do X, but Instead, this all gets in the way, or it's followed by an excuse. Or
Excuse.
I'm sorry, but you did
Yep.
XYZ. So then
Yep.
it negates everything that came before it. By the way, agreements, useful or not, don't even think about like good, bad, indifferent. Are they useful for me in the
That's an
direction I'm
excellent
going,
point.
or are they not useful for me? The good and bad is all relative anyway.
Yes.
Maybe when the
Yes.
agreement was made, it was good.
That's exactly right. And let's please not judge ourselves on that. Such an excellent point. The agreement was created in safety. As humans, we are hardwired to protect ourselves.
Right.
And so these agreements, whether you made them actively or not, they served you in the moment. And as you continued along your life and you continue to reinforce them, they somehow kept you safe until they don't anymore. And so, greatest point of this entire thing, thank you so much for saying that. Do not judge yourself for the agreements that you're working with that no longer serve you. Recognize that they no longer serve you and change them. That's really it. Don't go, oh, why did I? We could get caught up in the misunderstanding of all of it. It really doesn't matter. When you recognize it doesn't serve you, change it. Do something to change it. That's it.
I agree with you 100%. I would even say, even if your agreements are agreements that came from trauma, because a lot of our trauma response agreements are very unserving as we get older, but they kept you safe, right? What your body knew to do to keep you in a safe situation. One of my agreements has always been, you need to overanalyze everything that's happening in the moment so you could figure it all out. That is a trauma response from having a parent who I had to read all the time to figure out whether or not I was going to be the problem for all the things that day or not. Yeah. So it kept me safe. And now I have people around me that love me, and it doesn't serve me to overanalyze everything and jump to conclusions. So that's why 2 is the purpose for me.
Yeah.
So our body was doing what it could with what it had.
Yes.
Even if those agreements were reached through trauma, sometimes we have to say, okay, that agreement no longer serves me. Is it serve me or doesn't it serve me? That's the question that will always be the best for you. And by the way, Coach Jen, thank you for bringing up the terms. One of my favorite terms these days, both things can be true. Love that. The concept that both things can be true. We can be grieving and have joy at the same time, and that's okay. And we're very complex beings. So I love that concept.
Yeah. Black and white. There's so much more gray. We're very often asked to choose a side. And I can't, and I won't. And you can't make me. You can't make me.
Can't make me. I will not.
Okay, so to your point, communicate with others as clearly as you can to avoid misunderstanding, sadness, and drama. When you have the awareness of yourself that I'm going to use your agreement, right? When it comes from trauma, if we can have the courage to admit, to ask the questions, I recognize that this is something I'm working on. This is how I responded. This is why I responded. I'm trying. That then puts the ball in their court. No misunderstandings because we're not making assumptions. We're being as clear as we possibly can. And again, it takes courage. That's a muscle we have to practice. And we can do it in small little ways. We can just decide to be brave in small little ways, which will build that courage muscle and allow us to know that, oh, we can do it again and we can do it again. It's not too late to start now, is what I'm saying. You don't have to be 3 and 5 like I'm teaching my kids. You can be 43.
You don't even have to be 43. You can be 53.
You can be anything. That's what I'm saying. Start now.
Or 68 or 95. Yes. We don't care.
Yes. You can decide at any moment that whatever you were doing before doesn't work, and you can change it right now, any second. You can decide that. And what's so beautiful and brilliant about our brains is that they're constantly able to be rewired. It's that rewiring, the firing and rewiring. Right? Until you're dead, this can happen. You can rewire the neurons in your brain. You can decide something's going to be different, and you can put that into practice, and that becomes the new thing. And your brain just decides like, oh, our brains are wonderful and fucking awful all at the same time. They fool us so much. And you go, you know what? I don't like that first thought. I'm going to have the second thought. And now I'm going to go ahead and change that. And then that can be the new thing at any moment in time, any moment. I don't care how old you are. Start now.
And you're still going to butt and for a while until you get it down, because it takes a while.
Forever.
Yeah. I mean, that's the point. You got to work on yourself.
So the book says that with just this one agreement, the don't make assumptions, you can completely transform your life.
I believe that.
Yeah. Practical application. Okay. If we're not making assumptions, what are we doing? We're being curious.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That made me feel a certain way. That's interesting. I wonder what that is. I see them getting a little heated. That's interesting. How did I participate in that? Huh. I'm going to be brave. I'm going to ask more questions. Real life application, don't make assumptions. Accountability, empathy. I'm going to hold myself accountable for where I'm coming from up to this point. I'm going to have empathy for myself and for the other person or people in this room, in this thing, in this instance, in this conversation. I'm going to, we ever tell this to your kids, use your words, use your words. I'm not going to sit here and stew on my assumptions because I don't have the whole story. I'm going to ask. I'm going to try to understand. I'm going to ask again. I'm going to tell you where I'm coming from. I'm going to ask you where you're coming from. I'm going to use my words to help us get better because that's all I have. Yes, we have body language. That's a whole separate thing. Use your words. And then please practice patience. This is very tough. You need patience with yourself and you need patience with the other person because maybe they're not where you're at. They're not coming to the table with the same things you're coming to the table with. And so patience, patience, patience. And I know that's tough. That's why it's a virtue. And Nicole's favorite, clarity is power. The more clear we can be, the better able we are to move in the direction that both of us are looking for. So there you go. Agreement number 4, always do your best. And you go, yeah, of course. That's what we tell our kids. That's how we hope to show up in life, with the understanding that your best is going to change from moment to moment. It's going to be different when you're ill versus when you're healthy. It's going to be different when you are sad or grieving versus when you are joyous and all of the other things. It is going to change. And I think that we got into a thing as society that says, you were that way yesterday. You are supposed to be like that today. And you're like, hi, new information here. It's different. I think that we need to get away from that. I think that's it's important to recognize that if you are doing your best, you're doing your best. And just like are you a baby? No. Well, then, okay. Are you doing your best? Yeah. Well, then, okay. If you know that, let it be that. And so the book also says, under any circumstance, simply do your best and you will avoid self-judgment, self-abuse, and regret. So I like to say at the end of the day, if we've practiced all of these agreements, whether it went in a direction that you wanted it to or not, did we do our best with all of what we had in front of us that day? This is sleep trouble. Do you ever lay down and replay literally every intense conversation that ever happened that day or last year or 5 years ago or 10 years ago?
Oh, yeah. Or oh my God, I said such and such to so-and-so. Why did I say that? What's wrong?
Yeah.
Hello. I do that. I can't remember who said it. So beautiful. It was basically the concept that did I show up at my best today and do the best I could for the people I cared about and for myself? Coach Jen, I love that you brought up that it's different all the time. And very few days when all Nicole could do is get up and get dressed. But there have been days in my life where if I got up and I got clothes on, that was it. That's what I could give. And that's okay to have that day. And then other days I can give tons, but I can only give what I can give. And that's that being hard on yourself. And I agree with you. I think society has done that. You have to show up at your best every day. And that best has to be that same level. And it's like, well, if this is my set point for today, wherever my hand is, I can be this much above it. Well, if my set point goes up, then I can raise my level of showing up for others and doing things. But if my set point goes down, and let's be honest, I mean, we're women, Coach Jen. We have about 1 billion things that affect our set point. From sleep to hormones,
in the zone of chaos right now.
menstrual cycles, so all the different things. You just don't know what kind of mixed bag you're going to get. When you show up that day, the best version of yourself. And there are times when I have to talk to myself. So we have a word, we call it the dirty word that you're not allowed to say in our house. And that word is lazy. We will not use the word lazy because it starts to become that, oh, I'm being lazy today because all I could do was get dressed and relax. And you're in recovery. You're not lazy. Like you're sitting there and you're doing what you need to do for you to recover. And that's okay. Some days you just need those days.
Yeah. Society got there where it would only reward productivity. And that's why we have turned into such a mental health crisis in the world, is because resilience, right? Don't get me started on that word. And I've always said that resilience is both my greatest strength and my greatest weakness, because when you consider what it is, it's like, yeah, that thing happened Society says, get over it, move on. You've heard this, children are resilient. Well, how fucking resilient do you expect any one person to be before it starts showing up? How many kids, I'm raising my hand, are in therapy now because resilience was required when you were younger? When COVID happened, oh, kids are resilient. Are you kidding me? How much can you put a child through before? And then that's expected of us as adults. And what I also tell my clients, my coachees, is you also have to own it. Yes, it's okay for you to be that. If you're a 1 out of 10 today, you get to tell everybody, listen, I'm a 1 out of 10 today. And this is what I can do. And if that's showing up to the best of your ability, if the best you can be is 1, then you did your job. That's where we hope the people in our house going over all of the other. We're not going to assume things of you. We're not going to take things personally. And I don't know if it was Brene Brown or any other therapist that I've ever had conversations with that do this in their family. I don't know if you and Tim do this. You come together and you go, all right, today I'm a 7. We're going pretty good. I'm a little tired towards the end of the day. I had this happen, but overall I'm a 7. If your partner can be at least a 3 for you, we're good. Some people use a percentage. My 3-year-old knows 100%. I go, I'm not 100% today, babe. He goes, what are you, mom?
Oh, love that.
So this morning he goes, Mom, are you 100%? Yes, baby, I'm 100% today. Sometimes we'll go 110. Awesome. But if your partner can meet you at that 100, that's where it's like, and again, a separate podcast issue, but no relationship is 50-50. Whether it's your partner, whether it's your children, you bring to the table what you can bring. And if that other person can meet you for that full, great. We have a working relationship. Here's the thing. If I'm at a 3 and my partner's at a 3, if we can't hit 100%, everybody's on the couch, we're having pizza, we're watching a movie, maybe, who knows? We're not trying too hard that night. And that's okay. Yeah. Because we're going to make it. Tomorrow's a new day. We get to try. And that's the real life application of, are you doing your best? Number 1, are we being honest with ourselves? If we're being honest with ourselves, we can lie to every other person in the world, but when we lay our heads down at night, are we being honest with ourselves? That's the compass of where we're operating from. Did you, in fact, do your best? Are you able to have that athlete mentality? I screwed that conversation up. I really want to fix that. Cool. Let that be it. Move forward and fix it another time. But sitting there and stewing on it, this athlete mentality goes, okay, I didn't catch that fly ball. Can I stew on it for 9 innings? No, because there's going to be another one coming my way, and I cannot think. No, you have to have the athlete mentality to function. Really, to function. We cannot get stuck on the one thing. If you do think you want to fix it, if you didn't do your best, if you're not being honest with yourself, go and fix it, but do it the next day. Do it as soon as you possibly can, but don't sit there and judge yourself and stew on it. Have the athlete mentality. Be kind to yourself. We judge ourselves so much from what people think we should be doing or could or would or all those. It's just be kind to yourself. All right, I did my best today. I didn't really like how that went. I'm going to do my best to change it tomorrow or to be different tomorrow or whatever that looks like, right? Be kind to yourself. And then just remember that every day, and really every second, but every day is another opportunity to practice your skills. Every given moment. Ooh, you know what? I'm working on that agreement. I'm changing it. I fell backwards, but I'm aware of it. And I'm going to practice it in the next moment. And that's all you can do. That's all you can do. Show up and do your best. Practice, practice, practice. Love it. That's my spiel on the 4 agreements.
I love it. That's fantastic. When you brought up the societal physical productivity, the issue is we can't track mental productivity. It's like everything has to be tracked. Where's our mental productivity? What are we doing for ourselves to keep ourselves mentally there? What are we doing and some days you just need to take a break mentally. And you have to know what that is for you. That's really important. Really important.
How we recover. Mm-hmm. And that's the extrovert, the introvert, how do we personally recover? That's important to know about yourself. What recharges you? And
look, you said the athlete mentality. Just recently, we had a World Series game where an entire major league team fell apart. And it's so funny because when you're playing 12-year-olds playing baseball, it's like you see them do that a lot. You don't see the pros do it a lot, but you watch one of those games and you're like, wow, that was mentally, y'all just lost your game because you didn't have that ability to recover. And I think that's such an important point. And athletes recover. They know exactly what their body needs to recover physically. They got this stuff down to a science. And yet we're like, oh, just go, 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 go. And that should be okay. No, that can't be okay. We have to
No.
take care of ourselves. We have to know where we are. And yes, it was Brene Brown and her husband that you do that with the percentage, because if they didn't add up to 100, then they needed a plan. One of us has to give a little more, or we have to figure out a plan, because we can't not show it for these children. You know, I have a situation where I got grandchildren next door, but I don't have to be the primary caregiver. A little different for me. You know, Tim and I can both be 10%ers.
That's your son's plan, though. Son's plan is if he and mom aren't good, go to grandma's. That's my contingency plan. That's nice. Well, so I've given a couple of challenges, a few things to think about. One thing that I would like to leave you and folks with are, over the next few days, think about what are some of your personal agreements and do they serve you? The perfect point that you brought up. Does it serve who you are? Does it serve your family? Does it serve where you want to go, where you are going? And if it doesn't, you can change it. You can change it. Awesome. And that's what's so great. We're not stuck in it. So when we change our language, we change our life. This is the way it is not the way it has to be. And just start practicing. Practice the agreement. Start with one at a time. Today, I'm going to be impeccable with my words. When I get that one down, then I'm going to start the next one. I think that that's the simplest way to go.
It's a good plan. Do you want to go into our questions as we wrap up, Coach Jen?
What is your question for me so I can go first?
Okay. What color best describes your personality?
So it's funny you should say that. I mentioned colors earlier in this. I've said for the longest time that I have a color and then I have an accent color. Like I am a room painted in a wall, but I have an accent wall.
I like it. I like it.
So I would say that my accent wall is the color raspberry. It's a little hot pink. It's a little red. It's a little bright. It's a little out there. I would say that my regular color is like a butter yellow. It's what I strive for. It's like a, let's just even things out here. Now, am I always a butter yellow? No. I would say that I'm telling my brain, this is the color that I want to be. I want to be this like really easy, like a little baby chick canary, little yellow. That's that for some reason I connect with as like, ooh, everything's kind of chill. Everything's kind of okay. Like, let it be. And then there's that other side of Jen, which is the raspberry, which is that. And so I don't have favorite colors because you can't make me. There's too many good ones. And I would say that I'll go with my accent color. It's raspberry. My kids even know that. They're like, ooh, this is mom's favorite color. That's what I would say.
Nice. I like it. Good answer.
So, thanks. My question for you is only because I know that you just came off of an amazing trip. So I want to find out, what was your favorite part from your amazing trip that you went on? Okay.
So we went to Florida for a while. We actually went to the Keys with a couple we've never been with. And I would probably say one of the top things was the fact that, you know, when you don't know if a couple that you're going to vacation with, because you've never really done anything but go to dinner or maybe have one night together. Like we had an amazing time with this couple, which is awesome. My dad was also there. But for me, nature. Oh gosh. So we did all the things that had to do with nature. Number one, I have been on a search to see a live manatee in the wild. So we go on this snorkel trip. First of all, I snorkeled with 2 sharks, which I never even imagined that was going to happen. They were nurse sharks. I was safe, but that was super cool. We also saw a lobster and we're walking out and I'm like, why is there a rock right in the middle of the harbor where the boats go? It wasn't a rock. It was a manatee. It was a manatee. Yay! And I stopped and I went, why is there a rock there? And the guy was with me, he's like, I don't think there's a rock.
Oh my gosh.
Seeing that was so cool. But then on top of it, we go to the turtle hospital, which was amazing and beautiful and sad. And like, I can't believe what we are doing to some of the animals. As we're walking around the turtle hospital, we see in the grass, on the rocks and on the trees, 13, I kid you not, I counted them, 13 green iguanas between 1.5 feet and like 3 feet long. Like these suckers are big. It's just like all the nature is my favorite part. I love the nature. I saw things I never thought I would see before. And I was so excited. I'm like a little kid when I see the things.
I love it.
So it was a blast. Yeah.
Very cool. I'm so glad you had fun.
It was great stuff. And thank you for today. This was awesome. I love the refresh because I had heard these before, but I've never dove into them. But actually, the person who I got my initial coaching training from is a follower of the 4 Agreements. So it's very interesting to kind of have that coming back into my life again. And it's true, they're amazing. So
Yeah, it's
this
really
was
powerful. If you haven't read it, read it. But you know, I've assigned in coaching homework people to read the book, and I've had so many mixed reviews coming back because what I just did today is kind of pull out the practical. It's like, okay, this is what I got from it. This is how I would apply it. And I'm all about practical because we need tips, tricks, and tools to kind of move us through. Now, if you pick up the book and read it, I read it every year now. When I was studying it, I read it every other month. And as a refresher, I read it every year. But you may not, and I mean but you may not get, like, I just heard Jen and Nicole talk about it, but I'm reading this book and that's not what I'm getting. I've had people come back and be like, what in the fresh hell is this? This is like, this doesn't make sense to me at all. And I go, okay, you're not ready for it yet. You're not ready for it yet. Be okay with that. If you decide to pick it up and you go, I'm not catching what Jen got out of it, that's okay. That's really okay. Don't judge yourself there. If what we talked about today serves you, move with that. Just let it serve you. And that's it. But go pick up the book, The Four Agreements, Don Miguel Ruiz. We're not getting paid for this. It's just a really good thing to know.
Should be.
I know, right? But thank you so much. This is my favorite topic, as you know. So, well, one of my favorite topics, if I'm going to be impeccable with my words. One of my favorite topics, absolutely. So I appreciate your time on this one. Thanks for going through it with me.
That was fun.
All right.
Thanks,
I'll see
Jen.
you next time.
Write your lines with passion, let your spirit freely roam. The lessons of your journey